Episode 2, part
Do we have the background still, Will?
I have to edit the background because right now this is we're literally doing it live. We're even doing the background live right
Awesome. Uh,
now.
yeah, well, I mean, I can fill in some time, and it's been a very interesting few.
Yeah,
Uh,
You're back from the West Coast. What's been going
I
on?
am. Well, it's quite an exciting time right now, actually, in a multitude of ways. As for me, I've been focusing a lot on just trying to understand the situation, not just with the tech bubble or boom, depending on what you call it. Obviously, AI is on the head of everyone's attention right now. But for me, what was super interesting is that, in the pretext of the trade wars, a lot of Canadians, so the Bay Area has a ton of Canadians, and
Is that
Canadians are
right?
mobilizing in a sense of, hey, let's just get together and say hi to each other. And we're seeing more and more activity on this front. Just trying to see where everyone's from. And it's actually kind of astounding how many Canadians there are, how great they are at what they do, how much money that they've raised from American investors, and how big some of these companies are. My first time in the Bay Area was in 2017, and at the time there were a few events. For example, at the time the CEO of Evernote was hosting multiple events to try to get Canadians in tech going. And I think what we've seen since then, it's been 8 years, but clearly the Canadian tech scene has grown, but not nearly. I would say relative to the American one, we might have even shrunk, right? Because now the thing about technology is that once you build it out once, you can deploy it anywhere, and that means that whoever has the best will not just win their locality, but the world. And in my perspective, in Canada, we have obviously Shopify, we have Neo, we have Wealth Simple, we have a few different pretty cool companies. But the US is far and away, leading everything. And I think it's actually a very interesting time for that because what AI allows people to do is a lot of the technical abilities to create good products and software that everyone can use and fix people's problems, that's just become a lot easier. And you're seeing a lot of young people, 16, 18, 19, 21, they're dropping out of high school, they're dropping out of college, or they're not really dropping out. They're deferring or they're going on a gap year or something like that. And they're coming to San Francisco and raising money and starting to build a business. And that was, I think, the most interesting outcome for me from this trip. And that's why I invited you, Will, last week to attend the symposium in Waterloo next Wednesday. Because there
Yeah.
are so many talented young people, many of them coming from U of T, McGill, Waterloo, UBC. Um, and yeah, they're just making stuff. And they're going to the US not because they can't make things from Canada, but because they feel like
We,
it's the best way to grow. Yeah, go ahead.
we have a guest request, and actually, funnily enough, breaking news on the Globe and Mail: RCMP launched Alberta health scandal. That's breaking while we're on live. So that was our first topic. And we actually have a guest request from Marissa. I think Marissa is a friend of one of our dedicated, you know, friends on the platform, Ash. So I'm gonna invite Marissa in and see what Marissa has to say as well, and we'll also tag along with what you were just saying there, Jerry. So one second.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I like the interaction. Oh, it was a mistake. Okay. Yeah, no. I get it. It's a little bit scary jumping on these lives, but so actually, Jerry, we're gonna keep the background that we have with the Alberta health scandal topic here because it's topical. It's breaking news, so we'll keep it going.
Sure.
So yeah, the RCMP are now involved in that, and I mean that'll be interesting to say the least to see how that shakes out. And the other thing as well, obviously, we did have an election in Ontario. That's
Yeah.
our home province, and the Conservatives won. Our progressive Conservatives won. An even stronger mandate than the last election. I think they picked up one seat, so they have 80 seats in the provincial legislature. So they have a pretty strong. Again, you know what's interesting is, and we have a question from. You know nothing about the scandal in Alberta. Basically, what the healthcare scandal is in Alberta, is that Danielle Smith, the premier, and the Conservatives in Alberta, there was some questions about basically the ex-CEO of Alberta Health was going to investigate contracts to the private sector. If I remember correctly, it was around surgical centers and a couple other contracts. And basically, upon announcing that they were going to be doing those investigations, they were fired from the, and yeah, so optically, obviously, pretty shady, and yeah, so we're gonna see what happens there. But it brings up the topic about the relationship between private contractors. And look, I'm happy to talk about it as somebody who's a private entity existing in the healthcare space. And but yeah, definitely shady to say the least. So, and welcome.
Some Doug Ford level stuff.
I know you have a lot of thoughts off of the. We just had the election in Ontario, and Marissa's asking the question, why did she fire all of them? Well, we're guessing, and I'm just guessing, that there's some
There
relationships there.
seems to be a reason that just
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. So I think the best way to get rid of an investigation is to fire the people that are conducting the investigation. So we'll see what happens. Maybe, again, look, this is Canada. Everyone's innocent until proven guilty. So I don't want to say that Danielle Smith and the Conservatives did anything wrong in Alberta. But the optics are definitely not good. And now the RCMP are involved, and we'll see what happens. So that's what's going on there. Well, yeah. So welcome. Do we want to? Yeah. Sorry, Jared. Do we want to talk about Canadians in the States and the tariffs, or do we want to talk about the provincial election in Ontario and obviously again the tariffs? Because Doug has said that he is going to put a surcharge on electricity that's provided to. I don't remember how many states that we actually provide electricity to here in Ontario
New York, Minnesota, and I think Vermont.
and Vermont.
I
Yeah,
think.
so I don't know what's the more juicy topic here. What do you think? Yeah, three or four.
I think talking about the tariffs is topical in the sense right now it's. I mean, it would be devastating, right, if it actually carries through. And obviously, the U.S. postured and they did it, and they're like, actually, no, wait, hold on. And if you have followed Donald Trump for the greater parts of the past decade, which most people are unfortunate enough to have to deal with, yeah, he's kind of stuff a lot, right? Like I say, I'm gonna do it, and then he'll poke, and then if you, it's like a typical bully behavior, right? Like you punch him back. It's like, actually, hey, wait a second, not like that, and then if you let him off the leash a little bit, then he'll come back and do it again, and yeah, so I think a lot of people believe that this is not going to come long term because it keeps on getting pushed back. But for me, like I'm a little concerned because not because of necessarily him, but when you look at the circle of lieutenants around him, right? Because all these people are not just saying, "Okay, we need tariffs and we're following the line," but like they're actively going out to antagonize and disrespect Canada for their own base. And this is not something that
What's the end game here? Like, what is? That's what I don't understand. For Mexico, you could at least point to an end game of stopping illegal border crossings and things of that nature. He keeps talking about fentanyl coming from Canada. I'm not really sure what he's talking about there. What is the end game? Is it pipelines to the states? What does he want?
I
I,
mean, that's a
I,
great
I
point.
I think I think a lot of it is partly distraction from what they're doing to their own country down there. Number one, and I also think I mean they're gonna try to get what they want, right? Like they're not gonna lose anything by saying they're gonna annex Canada or they're gonna attack us economically. They're not really like specifically these rich folks, these rich fellows that they're favoring anyway, and planning to do more tax cuts for. They're not gonna lose anything. They're gonna get basically gain. I mean, tariffs. Who pays them? It's the American people. Who do they pay them to? I mean, isn't it the government? Isn't it back to the government? So they're not really losing anything per se, and who knows if they're gonna repay whoever is paying them on the back end, right? So I don't know if really there's an end game when it comes to Canada because like what are they gonna gain from adding our country? Our tax base it's like kind of small, like what are they gonna gain?
Yeah, not much. And like I think Ash brings up a good point about the illusion of power. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, the concept of kayfabe. Like so in professional wrestling, right? Kayfabe is basically this idea like everybody comes together to create this like sort of false reality, right? Like professional wrestling, it's not real, but it seems real and that sort of thing. And when I was watching that, everything in the Oval Office, it seems like professional wrestling. Like say thank you. What was that? That was absolutely incredible. And then you have this, the Governor Trudeau stuff, and it's just politics has become professional wrestling. It's become the world is about entertainment. And yes, Linda McMahon is the Secretary of Education in the states, and they're also dismantling the Department
Yeah,
of
for now.
Education. Yeah, right, yeah. So, Secretary of Education or Secretary of Nothing, depending on how you look at it. And what do you guys think about this idea? And let's bring it back too, because I think all of us are people that are actually interested in making an impact in the world, right? Not just like that's part of why we're here on live. Like as much as it's fun and whatnot, we're trying to make an impact. And like one of the things that I think about all the time is the fact that entertainment is really the language or the currency of attention, right? And when you look at the way Donald Trump operates, he seems to have a really good handle on the fact that the way to get people's attention is basically through entertainment. And he creates a show and he blasts you with all these different things, and people are paying attention. And when you look at Ontario, for example, we just had an election. Voter turnout was actually a lot higher than I thought it was going to be. At 47%, I thought we were going to have voter turnout in the 30s, but it doesn't really rate. So, what is the line between doing important work and entertainment? I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and I think it just helps. I think he's the epitome of like, there's no such thing as bad press, right? It's like, okay, if there's bad press, let's just make it worse, and then you talk about me more, and I mean, to go back to the topic of what I was mentioning earlier about people going to the U.S. to start their companies, a big part of it is because you just get a lot more attention, right? Like I think in Canada, if you tell someone you're 21 and you're trying to start a business and you're looking for like $5 million at a $30 million valuation, people are just going to laugh you out. Be like, haha, come back when you have a degree, when you have work experience and this and that. Whereas, the U.S. is much more focused on flair, right? It's showmanship.
Popularity,
Yes.
It's all showing, yeah. In the states, like the states is
prestige, idolization.
go. Like you're exactly right, Jerry. And you just came back from San Fran, right? So you saw that up close, right? But you're right. Like even forget about saying like a 21 year old. You say like, hey, I'm trying to do something. Again, again, I'll talk about seniors care just because that's what I do for a living, right? But in seniors care, Amica just got sold for close to $5 billion, right? By Ontario's Teachers Pension Plan to Welltower. And if you say like, "Hey, I'm trying to build some seniors homes or whatever," you get laughed at. Even though there's a shortage, even though there's this, whatever, we don't understand how to make progress here in America for all their negatives. I don't know if this entertainment based thesis is actually better because they mobilize things and they get things done.
Well, I think there's in most of these environments, there's always two sides, right? There's things that are better and things that are worse. But I feel like the good part about these tariffs is that people realize. I mean, to be fair, we have lived, pretty good relative to maybe the average American lifestyle here, right? Like in terms of healthcare, in terms of things like, yeah, it's not great, but it's still a lot better than how what some other people have. And kind of use that to say, oh yeah, you know what, that's fine. We have problems, but at least we're not going bankrupt from medical bills and stuff like that. And that's good to know, but at the same time, it almost like inhibits progress because people are like, oh, it's like good enough. And in the context of trade wars and national security and sovereignty, I think now premiers across the country are realizing, hey, first we got to build an east-west pipeline, right? Like because Alberta can't tax, export tariffs because even energy that goes to Canada has to travel through the U.S. borders. So that's one. And then second is, people are trying to create alternatives to American tech companies like Amazon, but there are none. And then you look at alternatives to companies like Walmart or Costco. Some of whom are like people support. Like I'm not saying like all American companies are bad or whatever, but I think this environment has just really shown that if you want economic national sovereignty, you have to have economic sovereignty too, right? And I think this is for me. I'm pretty active and vocal on Twitter about this, but I think like it's almost a patriotic duty now to start businesses. I'm doing my best. I'm mentoring some students from Canadian universities to help them get started. But yeah, like, starting your own business is the way that you create jobs. It's the way that you take something raw, you process it, and you bring something a lot more valuable, right? Like Americans don't really produce, like manufacture things. They refine and polish. And that's where a lot of the financial opportunities are. And so I think there's so many talented people who I really think starting a business today is not just in Canada but everywhere around the world. Like it's one of the best ways you can create freedom and security, not just for yourself but for your neighbors, for your friends, for your partners, suppliers. Because yeah, I mean, you try imagine trying to use a cloud services solution that's not American, right? Like, well, you can't even store your data anywhere. You can't like imagine trying to use any kind of online search or AI models. We have like one company that's doing well, but the big ones are either American or Chinese, and the French have one too. But yeah, like I just really feel that right now it's really for a very long time, a lot of people kind of put the economy not on a back foot, but it's like, okay, we should do something. And then now is the time to actually do something.
Um,
Yeah.
to answer your question, the entertainment in America, I mean, that's always been on the forefront. The difference now is that now news has become a big part of their entertainment, I guess, model right now. News
Yeah.
ever since there was 24-hour news, it just got bigger and bigger, and obviously the advertisers, they're in a bit of more control than they are here. Whereby so you say the wrong thing on your network, or if you did the wrong thing, if you don't get fired, you lose all your advertisers on that show. So that's one thing, but with regards to just entertainment in the U.S. in general, like Donald Trump got his start. I mean, from a show, from a reality show that it's not really real, but it really got him going back to what we said earlier, that idolization factor where he's the big businessman. This is he knows what he's doing type of thing. Meanwhile, it's no matter what happens, he's really gonna end up looking like that on that show. And that also got him his second $500 million, the first one coming from his father. That being said, that being said, shoot, you touched on something there. I can't remember what it was about. Oh yeah, the America being, we are like them, but they do better than us. Everything they do terrible stuff, and they go to each extreme. Both ways. They have great luxury life, and then they have extreme poverty. So we're not trying to spread our income disparity or our poverty gap any wider, but them coming over here, trying to I guess infiltrate our lands. I mean, that's exactly what they're trying to do, especially eliminating healthcare and stuff like that. We know Doug Ford's doing a bit of a job on that, but other industries, it's the same thing. The LCBO, etc. Right?
Well, can I let me toss out this idea that American media is their most dominant export. And, if we had the ability to, think about our most impactful Canadians. A lot of them exist in entertainment. You have your Drakes, your Justin Biebers. Is our inability to have dominant Canadian media actually what sets us back? You have Doug Ford, for example. He's trying really hard to he gets on Fox News, but I don't think he's getting the real primetime segments and stuff like that.
No, he won't. I wasn't saying that that's their most predominant industry. It's just a big one.
I'm saying that.
Okay.
Trump,
Right.
Trump's ability to manipulate media, right, is
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
and it's his talent. His marketing talent is say what you want about Donald Trump.
Oh yeah.
But his ability to market, if you study his career, which I actually have, that's where his genius lies. And because people actually don't know, but Donald Trump's he didn't start by going into real estate with his dad. He actually started by he wanted to be on Broadway. He wanted to be a producer on Broadway. So the show business was actually his first calling. And it didn't work out. And when it didn't work out, that's when he came and started working with his dad. And the development career started. So Trump has always done a great job of understanding how to make media work for him. And he's parlayed that into the presidency. And, I sort of say that's a remarkable achievement, regardless of how you feel about the guy. But I think as Canadians, we have a lot of talent. Like Gash was saying, when it comes to music and other artistic endeavors, we have a lot of talent in Canada. But our inability to sort of make our, if there's Americana or Canadiana, right, felt in the States or on a wider level, I think actually something that's really interesting is for example, look at the way K-pop. I don't know if it's as big of a trend, but when BTS was going and stuff like that, the way that K-pop really made an impact on the culture a few years ago and is still having that impact. Are people really that educated about South Korea? But their cultural impact is huge, right? So
Absolutely.
I don't know, right?
That's fair.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned that because I was actually, even back in the days of our high school days, that was my personal K-pop wave, and it was really interesting to
SNSD, Wonder Girls,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I remember.
But yeah, I mean, back in the day, right? Like it was this niche
Yeah.
thing, and most people didn't know much about the country. And once the pop element of K-pop took off, right? You've seen a significant amount of people learning not just, you know, to appreciate the music and the dancing and all that, but also the beauty standards, the language, the culture. Like the K-pop has done tremendous economic wonders for the economy, right? Like there's a lot of people I know personally who've actually gotten to go study Korean, to go visit,
Yeah.
to fly there. And that really just speaks to the power of attention, to go back to your original point. It's, these kind of things, uh, there's material impacts that create more durable moats and legacies around your own culture and society. And so, that's kind of incredible for me to understand that, just a couple of people, I remember when it really took off, the thing that got me back in was Gangnam Style, right? That took over the world.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
everyone says like,
For
what is
sure.
Gangnam? And I think that was like one of the windows where people started peeking through. It's like, hey, there's something I don't know much about. And they started digging into it a lot more and created this phenomenon that still exists today. And now it's no longer like it's super mainstream now, right? Like K-pop is not some niche thing. It's like it's just mainstream.
yeah.
But yeah, it just really shows the power of attention and all the different ways that
For
you can
sure.
capitalize and build on top of.
No, I
I was gonna
agree.
say,
Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
I
Go
just
ahead.
wanted to say, the maybe the reason why, our culture in Canada is usually definitely it's so close to the United States that I think
It's
they just
almost
adopt our
indistinguishable.
best. Yeah, they end up adopting all of our best artists. Okay, so whenever our artist is good, it's usually like they're usually at the very top pinnacle of the genre. Like let's say like Justin Bieber, Drake. That's just musical artists, but like Jim Carrey. Um, what's this guy?
Mike
Austin Powers.
Myers.
Yeah,
Mike
yeah.
Myers. Yeah.
People of this caliber are usually definitely adopted by the
Wayne
U.S. and
Wayne
obviously,
Gretzky. Wayne
um,
Gretzky.
um,
Oh,
Right
wow.
this fellow,
now.
Ryan Reynolds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the other Ryan, Ryan Gosling. Is he Canadian?
Oh, the
I don't can't
goose.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is like that's why K-pop. We can distinguish it from our specific Canadian culture so easily. But when it comes to what we do, it usually just gets adopted by them. So we don't even necessarily claim it, but it's sort of there. Like we're just really kind of close to what they do. So maybe if there was a way to like uh you know position ourselves to I don't know get these Canadians to represent their country more, then that would and maybe harness it somehow. That would be the way. I mean, we can start. I wouldn't say going all
Well,
the way to where Americans are have exceptionalism, but definitely more
they
patriotism.
do though. Look at like speaking of Drake. So like one of the things like when I went to university 2011 to 2015, Drake was Drake was an anchor for like people like understanding where I was from and stuff like that. Oh, you're from Toronto. Oh, the six, blah blah blah, blah, right? But then look at what Kendrick did to Drake, like just like decimated him, right? Like and they completely like they again Drake is now he's not like us, he's not American. Like America will forget. America will as soon as it's convenient for them, they will point out that you are different than they are, right? And that's the thing is like we go there and we chase the money and we chase the attention, but they will throw you to the side in a heartbeat when it's convenient for them, right? And that's like one thing that I think we gotta consider. I think that's the problem about making our cultures so close and so indistinguishable is that when it comes down to it, they don't like look at it. You know, I always used to laugh in school. People used to say like, "Oh, like Canada is America's hat." I think that's from South Park or something like that, right? And it's just it's like that's all they thought about us is that we're America's hat, and you know, like
I want to
it's
follow
a
up
real
on that.
thing. Yeah.
I think what Quebec has done really, really well, and this obviously is showing in the geopolitical range too, with the French nuclear umbrella and the cultural power that they're now projecting. Yeah, I think like if you look at the heart of Canadian media and identity, a lot of it comes from the Quebecois, that fierce the way that they cling on, right? Because they will never be similar to Americans. Like we know that for sure. Like they don't care
Yeah,
about the
yeah.
British, don't care about
Heck, they're not similar to the rest of Canada,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And where the rest of
right?
us are like, oh yeah, well that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I think this is where a nation that's so large, east west, right, where you have a lot of huge cultural differences between the east and the west. Um, that's something that we can learn a lot from. There is actually a very interesting article. His name is a writer. His name is Thomas Guayo. He wrote about COVID during when it first happened with like really detailed graphs and charts. And one of the things that he dug really deep into is how our cultural and national identities formed, right? And a lot of that has to do with geography. North South tends to be a lot more culturally hegemonous than East West, partially because the way that continents lie, right? Like if you think about like someone living in Saskatchewan, like what do they have in common with people from uh, uh,
Toronto.
Toronto
Toronto.
or even Vancouver, right?
Hmm.
And but if you look up and down within the U.S., which is very large, both north, south, and east, west, right? Like the way that weather patterns work, the way that natural landscapes work. New York and Boston are a lot closer than somewhere like if you had equidistant east-west really like Pittsburgh and New York, right, which is around the same distance, but because of the geography, changes the way that you do things and think about things very drastically.
That's a
And
good point. Yeah.
it's a really interesting article. It's quite long, but
Well, the kids don't read anymore, Jerry. So
that's
bad
true. He's
news.
got
It's a
lots
long
of graphs.
article. Yeah,
He's got
that's
lots
why.
of graphs and
Put it on
visuals.
Audible.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why we're talking about it on TikTok. So
yeah, yeah. No, you're right. But yeah, like this is like a real. But I wanted to point this out because I think it's a real challenge in creating like a much more um,
Hey, if you have the link to it,
culture.
put it in the chat. Some At least one person asked for it.
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
gonna type his name.
we have
Uh,
one reader. We have one reader in the audience. Oh man. No, it's that's an interesting point about the East West, and that is a really good point. Because I mean, even just Toronto again, like that East Coast
Emulating New
culture.
York,
Yeah, exactly. Like
Toronto
we,
emulating New York, yep, and Quebec even emulating New York a little bit,
yeah,
except
no,
for the Frenchness, obviously.
yeah. Well, the only thing I would say is that probably again, like when you look at what the hockey did, the Four Nations, right? Like look at what that sparked in the media, right? That's like a good example of Canadian sort of that the Canadian culture it gets encapsulated in hockey a lot, right? So,
Oh,
and that did a
absolutely.
lot. Yeah, that did a lot. I mean, that was fun. Like I'm not like a big hockey guy, but I watched the final for sure, and
Oh, of course. This time
that
and the
was a lot
last
of
time
fun. Yeah, yeah. Anytime there's
with
big hockey, we all watch.
Agilna and
Yeah.
Crosby.
Oh,
Oh, it
that
was
was huge, right? So, uh, you know, it's really interesting what rates and Canada. We're in a tough spot. We're really. I think that's the one thing is I think we took it for granted that you have this giant to the south of you, and we just kind of took it for granted that they would
absolutely,
always be
absolutely. We
friendly
were
to us, right?
totally
And
complacent. I make this joke with my girlfriend about uh we need to do the Canadian drone wall like from what is it, Spider-Man, whatever it
oh
was,
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
it
yeah,
was.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need the Canadian drone wall. that's
Yeah,
that's the
no.
only that's the wall we need. You know what I mean? Like, Ukraine did a pretty good defending themselves with drones at the beginning of the war there. So I thought, maybe we need to, let that idea flow. But who knows, man? We honestly would have absolutely no chance, and I think that's what it may come down to in the end. Hopefully, we could drag out the negotiations, quote unquote negotiations, for 4 years. But I think a lot of it is just bullshit. Maybe not so much Mexico because of the reasons you were saying, but
Yeah.
definitely Canada. What do they have to gain? What, annex us for what? What's gonna happen? What are you gonna gain? There's nothing. What, do you guys want to move up here? Really? No, you guys
The
don't want to move here, man. So
resources. It's like the same thing with
yeah,
Ukraine. Like, hey, sign this
yeah,
mineral
but
deal or else, like, like,
And
okay,
don't
yeah,
forget,
all right,
when you come from a real estate background, right? The most important thing that
yeah,
always matters is land. I mean, it's true. Like, either for
yeah,
both Will and I have worked in real estate. That's what the company that I'm building right now is focused on it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, like most people should recognize that economic value is derived from the land that it sits on, right? Like when you buy a house,
totally.
the reason why houses are more desirable for investments is because you just own more land. And maybe this one day, this one unit becomes 2 units, or maybe even 4 units, or maybe a big building. And then, you get a lot more value by building up. But the physical, landscape value of the land is strong. And if you look at American history, right, like they've expanded via, their Louisiana Purchase. They've gone to war with Spain and Mexico. They've negotiated with the Russians to buy Alaska. Like American at its core, it's a very much of a real estate play if you think about it. And the thing that I've met a lot of Canadians who are like, oh yeah, but they're not really serious about that. And the only thing I would ask is, when have Americans voluntarily gave back land? When have they voluntarily said, you know what? And I'm not talking about like the world wars because that's across an ocean away. But when you look at their territorial history, right, it's like, hey, anything around us is sort of free game. That's our.
well, well, what I will say is that, what I will say is that it would make Trump and he's arguably already a president for the history books, but if North America becomes the USA, right? Like, I mean, he is a president that would be remembered in history because of that sort of expansion. And I don't think that's something that we should underrate. I think that's something that he thinks about a lot. And it just goes to show, again, like some of these things, like the one thing I'll say is that, like, I don't know if you guys watched what did they call that speech? A joint session of what Congress or what?
State of the Union.
Yeah, like it's like a state of but it wasn't a State of the Union. It's
Right,
something,
it was
whatever.
something else.
Anyways, I'm
But
I'm
yeah,
not American, so yeah.
the other day,
The other day,
yeah,
whatever.
I saw
Yeah,
it though.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And you have the Dems sitting there holding like their popsicle signs or whatever, like, oh, save Medicaid, and it's like
totally feckless.
you guys aren't getting it. Like what the right is understanding is like, what are the rules? Like, challenge them.
Yeah,
Because
exactly. We're in
like,
charge. No one's gonna put
yeah,
us in jail if we don't tell them to. We're just gonna
like
do
The other
shit.
thing is like,
they look
That's
at it,
what
they
they're
say,
saying.
like, oh, Canada's our ally, like that, we can't do that. Who
no,
says we
but
can't do that? Who
think
says
about it
we
this way.
can't?
Exactly.
Think about it this way.
Yeah.
You
How
know?
if Trump actually managed to somehow annex Canada and then it actually becomes a state? How many Democrats would be like, no, 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 they can't join us. No, no, no. We don't want this land. Like nobody. Right? They'd be like, oh, great.
The
Like if you give it 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, people are like, oh yeah, great. Like they see this as like an inherently good thing. And so that's why it's a
the
very dangerous environment right now for Canada because like the Democrats are not like they honestly, if they could have more land, like when I say they, I mean the Democrats, like they would be very happy to take more land. If Canada was offering, hey, we're in a bad economic situation, we'll sell you, I don't know, like New Brunswick or I don't know, somewhere that might be not doing well economically. Yeah, the Democrats are like, okay, yeah, let's talk, right? Like it's expansionism is a very core part of American culture, whether it's land or influence.
Yeah, the only thing that'll stop them from actually doing it is logistics, or if popular
Yeah,
if
yeah,
sorry,
sure.
Donald Trump loses popularity enough so that he's just like, okay, some compromise or something. But the point really is, I do think that is a big part of his psyche as well. Like, he wants to be popular, and having, a lot of Americans start hating him, and then and probably most of Canada. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of people out there, kind of saying, "Oh, we really want to be part of the states," which I think is just very. I have some words for that, but I just think
Well,
it's gonna come down to if it's possible, like how it's gonna be done, and like if he cares to do it because of how people feel about him after, because
look, he
he's sort of
doesn't
vain. He's not sort of
care.
vain. He's completely vain.
He thinks there are no rules. There are no rules. And
Right.
like that's the
Agreed.
thing. It's like honestly on the left, like I the left has to get over this idea of decorum and whatever. Like go out and do it. Like don't hold up your stupid sign and like like oh whatever. Like you think he cares? He like the one thing I'll say, like looking at we the Canadians are booing the anthem, the U.S. anthem, and it's like they're like how dare the Canadians boo the anthem? How could they do that? And it's like of course we're booing the anthem. You guys are like threatening the whole country, but like that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
They don't care, but like I don't know why we're so obsessed
But
with all
that's what I
this stuff.
mean. I think that, again, one of the only things that'll stop him is becoming unpopular, and that's possible. It really matters if he gets an incentive better than that, or if he just cares that much about it.
Yeah, but
Because what else would stop him if he's determined?
he
What else would stop him?
and you know what? Ash makes a great point, like about people without empathy. And I was reading the book, Sal Alinsky's book, Rules for Radicals, and it's talking about basically like it's about organizing, community organizing, and it's like this idea. It's like, look, there's never been any sort of movement that where you sort of have these half measures where you're like, well, the other side they're good people too, right, or whatever. It's like no, it's black and white. There's good and there's bad. There's good and there's evil, and the on the left we're so like concerned with being like, oh, you know what, like no, like they're good on that side too, and blah 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 blah. But on the right, they're not concerned about that. And I like Trump set the tone right from when he announced for running for president. It's like maybe some of the Mexicans are good people, but they're rapists, they're murderers, or this, or that. Like they understand. Like it's if you want to rally to, if you want people to rally to your side, you have to give them a choice, right? And that's the thing. There's no empathy. It's not about empathy, right? Yeah, exactly. Like good Canadian manners and these sort of things. Like it doesn't work in this context. Like look at what rates on social media. Look at what Elon is doing right now. Like the stuff that you're seeing on social that is so like absolutely bad shit. Like
Yeah, but
but
that's also due to the algorithms, though, right? Never forget, like, they program the algorithms to
yeah,
push certain right wing hate.
but the algorithms just work off of what we give attention to. Like that's like they look at it and they say like,
Uh,
hey, like this is what people
I don't
reward. We
necessarily think so.
reward controversy.
Not fully.
Like you don't think so? I'm interested. Like
To a
this is
degree,
actually
to a
one.
degree. No, no, don't get me wrong, to a degree. But if you, like, I'm maybe more resistive than the everyday YouTube watcher, but I get right wing ads that I would never ever, like, you know what I mean? Like, I get the Ben Shapiro and the what's this fella, the therapist who lost his license, I forget his name. I get those
Jordan
all day.
Peterson.
Exactly, I get those all day long. I'm like thinking to myself, like, how many times do I gotta reject this? Like, I'm not gonna ever watch these people, but I get it, and I'm totally. I'll never watch those guys because I've seen what they spew, and it just comes off as total bull to me, like most of the time, right?
Yeah, but what they're hoping for is that it'll enrage you and that you'll engage with it because there's a lot of people that do. Like, you
right.
know,
But
yeah,
what
like
I'm saying is what I'm saying is they're capturing people for those types of channels, but not others, not left wing channels whatsoever. I've never gotten a left wing channel invite at all, and I watch several, but there are others, and it should lead me to that and not the right wing. That's just my opinion, though.
that's interesting. I think what it is that the right does a better job of getting attention. That's why they're kicking. That's
That's
why they're kicking
definitely fair.
butt. You know what I mean? They
That's definitely
they
fair.
they've
Absolutely,
adapted to this social environment, and the left or the center hasn't. You know,
they've
like
harnessed it.
they've harnessed it. Like the most powerful thing is this device that we all hold in our hands. You know, heck, we're holding in our hands when
Exactly.
we're going to sleep. And if you can't harness that, how do you think you're going to win?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, okay, well, it's cultural programming, right? And you know what I do? I do satire. So, that's my effort to like, do some unprogramming especially due to the misinformation. But yeah, sorry,
But
you're saying something?
let me ask you, like you're talking about unprogramming, right? Like, what's easier to do, to undo or to go with the
Oh,
flow?
oh,
Just like
oh,
go with
to
the
go with the flow
stream.
for sure. Without question, but like you're only gonna get pushback from critical thinkers anyways. So people who are maybe questioning it in their mind, that's who I'm maybe aiming at. Personally, that's just
Yeah.
me.
Like, can I say, like, I was watching, and I watched from time if he has an interesting guest on, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan had this
Okay.
guy, Ian Carroll. And Ian Carroll is actually very famous on this platform. This is where he sort of made his audience, as I think his account has canceled his clothing company. And I don't know if you've ever seen his videos, but his videos are about like you'll have, well, I mean, there's a lot of actually anti-Semitic stuff. His Twitter is much more unhinged than his TikTok, but it'll be like who owns the cereal aisle in the grocery store, and you'll go and you'll show that like actually it's like the same group of Wall Street companies that like really own these companies, and like there's the illusion of choice, but really everything's flowing back to these big companies. And he's kind of like a conspiracy theorist in some aspects and stuff like that. Anyways, it's interesting. Some of it's interesting. Some of it, like, I get shocked at, like Rogan. I think like Rogan really pisses me off these days because it's like I don't know if any of you guys watched the Elon Musk
He's drifted
interview.
right. He's just
Well,
drifted very
like
far away, right in
actually,
my
what
opinion.
I thought was amazing was actually on this Ian Carroll one. Carroll's trying to talk about Trump and Epstein, and
Hmm.
Rogan steers the conversation immediately away. Like anytime Carol was being a little bit critical of Trump, Rogan steers it. Like, and it's just like so blatant, and it's to me, it's like I don't know how people don't see it. Like it's really
I mean,
interesting to
they're
me.
under the
Like,
same programming. I find, right? Like, so it's just normal. It's just every day. Oh, well, are we going to talk bad about him and then move on to something
you know,
general? I
like
don't know why they exactly, but it just seems very obvious to me and very normal to them. Which as a matter of perspective, they're not going to see it. Until they see it, you can't really show them that they all agree.
yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, I Rogan's done so much in this space again, and sort of understanding the internet and how things work today. Like people keep saying like who's going to be the left wing Rogan, and it's like I I don't know if you can create one. I guess the closest figure was like Jon Stewart with the Daily Show, but I
Well,
I,
so
I
I just
I actually think for a long time he did a lot of the cultural I guess guiding and before he went to Trevor Noah I think it did and him leaving right before Trump or right at Trump's I guess beginning was terrible because John Stewart used to just call it the bullshit. To be frank, he used like he just make it so cynical what they're doing, and whether or not something was done about it, a lot of people would just have the perspective that yeah, that's ridiculous, other rather than fall for a lot of the misinformation out there, which is also something that spurred up at the beginning of Trump and throughout Trump's tenure.
No, yeah, yeah, you're definitely right. Definitely right. Is there anybody that you guys see as a potential besides us, obviously, rising up
No,
to Rogan's level? Is there anybody else that you guys are seeing out there?
um just because of her objectivity, I have hopes for Rachel Gilmore. She just started her stuff out. um none of us are very big. There are a couple. What's his name? Frank Dominic.
Yeah,
I just didn't like. They were pushing the smartvoting.ca thing, and a lot of people thought that was code for the Liberal Party. Which okay, I wouldn't mind the Liberal Party if it wasn't for, and where we may disagree on this. Bonnie Crombie is an okay candidate, but like you don't do Mean Girls in the debate and then like ask you don't ask NDP voters for your vote. Like you don't like you can do it, but like I find Liberal and NDP voters are they're the more informed voters, and if we've chosen NDP, it's for a reason. Like if you ask for the vote, you can ask, but we already know why we're not voting for her
well,
specifically.
what do you think
And
about the what do you think about a merger between the Liberals and NDP? Is
and the
that
Green and
if
the damn
it,
Green
and the
Party.
Greens? Yeah, yeah.
But
Like, what do you think? Should the left just
I,
unite in
oh,
Ontario
my
and
my
nationally?
my issue with liberals is some folks' arrogance. Like, okay, um, with regards to reacting to things, um, I said on social media as one of these other creators that Trudeau was complacent. And look at okay, for instance, this is the perfect example. Carney, he came in and people are saying, "Oh, he's gonna expand the carbon tax." I see this ad on YouTube going constantly talking about he's gonna expand it, he's gonna hike it, and he obviously said the opposite, right? He obviously said, "I'm specifically gonna get rid of it," and I'm not saying Trudeau should have done that specifically, but you've got to react. You've got to do something. Ask the people. Put out a referendum. Do what you got to do to make a point or a something you can't just sit there and just take these shots from Pierre saying, oh, the carbon tax, look what it's costing you, blah blah blah, and then oh, you just say, oh yeah, but you're getting a rebate. Meanwhile, this Pierre guy is just making you look like crap the whole time. At least like Carney attacked it directly, and I thought that was you know that was a difference, right? You can't just yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's basically the difference I'm seeing. You need to have some sort of not you can't just be an empty shell, and unfortunately that's what I found. That's what I found with Crombie. Um, I think a lot of Ontarians felt that way. Obviously, she didn't win her seat. Um,
Yeah, that's a bad look.
uh,
I want to jump in.
yeah, like
Yeah, yeah. Jump in,
yeah,
Jerry. Jump
Yeah.
in.
No, I want to
sure.
almost change the topic a little bit. It's on the same wavelength, but I think I wanted to go back to when I was talking about the economy, right? And the number one reason why all these things exist is just because there's more money in the U.S. and therefore they put more money into it, and therefore they grow it bigger. And it doesn't need to be that way because with technology, right? Like you don't you don't need to be somebody really huge or big. I mean, if you look at a lot of the right wing podcasters, they all started off just as you said, Will, getting attention. But I
Yeah.
think if either the what the political establishment in Canada have really messed up is like I feel like in Canada it's almost not good to make money or start your own business, right? And I think because I've been very engrossed by the culture of startups here in the U.S., it's very clear that if you go to California and you look at who makes money, who has influence, who has impact, it's all the people who used to work in tech, who many of whom started with maybe some background or some money, but not really. Um, but yeah, like it's all these employees of these early companies who get ownership, who get profit from the output that they create, right? It's like early employees get equity. And we don't really have that type of culture where people are directly benefiting from the output of their own work. Part of that is because I think of a more employee culture mindset, right? In that, okay, yes, I need to pay the bill, so I've got to do. By the way, would you mind muting your mic a bit?
Yeah. Well,
Sorry, I was just getting distracted.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, what I was saying is that if people are reliant on only salaried income in an age where wealth and spending power is reliant on equity ownership, whether it's stocks, whether it's your housing, whether it's your car, like all these services today that make a lot of money, they sell subscriptions and they sell essentially rentals to access a product, right? It's almost everything we use that we pay
Yeah,
for,
well, I mean,
whether
but
it's Spotify,
it's also terrible, by the way. But
it
that's a
is.
whole
It's
other
the
topic.
financialization that you mentioned previously, but
Yeah,
I think like we really need to re-encourage people that hey, making money is okay. It's a good thing. That other people should be thinking of ways to not just do the 9 to 5, but what are some problems that other people have that you have the skill set to tackle and invest money and build your own business, right? Whether it's a side hustle or it's a small business or consulting or helping your friends. Like, I don't know. I'm really one of the things that I intend to accomplish when I come back to Canada next week is to try to get some of these young people like, hey, you know what? You can start your businesses in Canada too, right? A lot of people are thinking, okay, I have to go to the U.S. because otherwise I can't find I can't find access to funding. It was like, no, that's not true. You can make money anywhere. And Ash, I understand this perspective, but here's the problem, right? And I think this is why Democrats and leftists in the U.S. are so weak. Leftists in the US have essentially alienated every single vestige or they've alienated anyone with any sort of resource or power. So if you look at like the police, right? The police, Democrats are not on the best of terms with police or unions or businesses. But yeah, I mean, I understand this is less so the case in Canada, but at the same time, like when you don't have money, right? Like when you don't have the ability to retaliate, and thankfully we do have the ability to retaliate, which Doug Ford is doing, which Trudeau is doing, and all these premiers are doing. But yeah, like I think we need to create more businesses and have people understand, hey, just because you make money doesn't mean you're a bad person. And if you can create a business and you can employ your friends, you can employ your family members. Like I grew up in a family business, right? Like I watched everybody in my family become reliant um, on our business, and it means that we need to put in more work, and we do put in more work than many other people because we know that our livelihoods depend on it. And yeah, I think there just needs to be a lot more encouragement, whether it's through tax policy, whether it's through investment from outside sources, um, to achieve these kind of things. And I don't think there's really such a thing as a healthy work ethic. I think if you look at the big businesses that employ lots of Canadians, especially the founder led businesses, right? I mean, I come from a family business, so I can tell you a lot of people would call this maybe an unhealthy work ethic. But my mom worked basically all the time. And technically, you could say that I'm working all the time, though I wouldn't say that about myself. I think it's all about like what do you want to achieve as a result. Um, you have to put in the time to get the work done, right? So right now, I am someone who isn't uh, very well versed in the technology space, but I just have to put in more time to make sure that I can catch up. Otherwise, I'll just always fall behind. You have to find a way. And if you talk about corporations, right, this is the entire point, I think, of having your own business and startups and entrepreneurship is that you can outcompete these big companies because, by definition, by being big, they're very lumbersome, they're very slow, they're encumbered. And you, as an individual, can act a lot faster than they can. I can let you on the live. I can let Will speak. But I think if you look at the reason why the American economy is so strong and big, a very, very, very large amount of their financial power and resources come from places like Silicon Valley, right? Um, so I'm
Well,
going to open it up.
what I yeah.
Their economy, quote unquote economy, may be big or maybe quote unquote strong, but their people aren't benefiting. So I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine. And
There's a
I would,
huge perversion right now, right? Where
yeah,
I
exactly.
like people, we can point to all these stats and economic growth and wealth, the stock market, but like it's not getting to the actual people anymore, right? Like
No,
things are completely
has nothing to do with the
separated.
people.
Yeah, like, and I think that's what's really screwed up. I think financialization, and like I'll keep saying this till I'm blue in the face, right? Like I know it's like my number one thing that I talk about is this over financialization, but I really, really think that finance has become in a lot of ways the enemy of the people because capital, like the way that capital is utilized, it's completely in service of those who already have capital. And labor is looked at as, it's looked at almost like a nuisance, right? Rather than like saying like, hey, we're all in this together. The labor is helping me make this profit, right? Like that's not the way that things are looked at. And Wall Street, everything, like it's completely unrealistic. Like this idea that like, okay, our charts have to keep going up and up and up. Like there's nothing in this world where, what's the old saying, what goes up must come down. Like there's nothing that we would ever expect to continue to increase in perpetuity. But like that's the way that we've built this economy, is that like we
Yeah,
need
yeah, they're
economic
propping it
growth.
up.
Like if I told you that, you'd say it's a Ponzi scheme. Like you would say like that makes no, you'd say that
Exactly.
makes no sense. But that's
Yeah,
that's what our economy is built on.
So
absolutely.
I would say I'm not in complete rejection of what you're saying, but I do oppose some of it. And the main part of that is if you look at the wealth creation that's happened in the U.S., right? A
Creation for
lot of
who? For
well,
who and when?
it's for a lot of employees, right? So you look at the early DoorDash employees, the early Uber employees.
How many employees does DoorDash have? Like
Uh,
if you were to compare, if you're talking about wealth creation, let's talk about the wealth creation of, let's say, automobile manufacturers in the early 1900s and beyond versus DoorDash employees in the late 2000s. How many are we talking about? And
yeah.
compare the benefit to the real economy.
So I'm looking it up right now. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so the U.S. tech industry employs around 9.5 million people, right? So not a small number by any means.
Okay,
Um,
but this is what I mean. Like this. Sorry, Jerry. Let's debate it. Like let's be
sure, sure.
fluid. Interrupt me, cut me off, whatever. Right?
Okay.
9.5 million people. I would want to know the split of those people between software engineers, like the people that you would call like Silicon Valley workers, right? And then people that are doing like call center jobs, people that are doing far less higher paid roles, right? And compare that, because in my mind, I do not believe exactly. I do not believe that Silicon Valley. I think Silicon Valley was a huge bait and switch. And sorry, I I don't want to. Jerry, if you're gonna get some guilt by association here, we can pull this. We
Oh,
won't
not at all.
distribute this part of the live. But like, I think Silicon Valley, as somebody who is, when we were in university, going back to 2011, we all watched The Social Network, and oh my God, like we're gonna change the world. Did Silicon Valley change the world? Like when you look at those companies and you think about like
How can you argue it
the impact, and when you think about the impact in your actual life, what these companies did, like obviously like you have the iPhone or whatever, but like think about all these VC companies, all these VC funding companies. What's changed about your life?
I
You're
think
more addicted to your
literally everything,
smartphone than you
right?
were in high school, but what else?
I,
What did
I
you
think
benefit?
I I think on this very platform for conversation, which is TikTok, obviously, but it heavily inspired by what was created, in Silicon Valley. I think Silicon Valley has been one of the biggest creators of not just wealth but also jobs, possibly in any technological development since the Industrial Revolution. Right? You look at the products that we use. Oh, what do you mean by that? Yeah.
No,
I think
I like
the
honestly, I want to see like again. So
I
you
would
brought up
love to see
social.
somebody's
I
life.
want to see the stats. I want to
I
see
would
them,
love to see
and I
one
don't.
person's life that doesn't use technology that's touched by Silicon Valley in some way.
No, but I'm saying improved
Yeah, but
by
what
it.
type
Like
of
in
jobs are we
2011,
talking
go
about?
back to when you were in high school. What is better about your life that technology brought to you? Like, you sure, like I said, you're more
I think
addicted
the
to your
ability
phone,
to connect with.
including TikTok. But oh, we're more connected. So I send emails for work, like all
But I
this
think we
stuff.
can
Like
also
everybody
personalize
bothers
and
me in the middle
have.
of the night. Like,
But
is your
but
life better?
we have the ability to connect across different geographical distances. There are multiple people on this conversation right now who never would have been able to even organize if without this type of technology, right? I think if you look at the way the prices of certain products, obviously we've had inflation in some
The
quarters.
prices of certain products, which, okay, I always say the greatest bait and switch is
What do you
Uber, and I think this is prime Silicon Valley. Okay, and people always say too with Silicon Valley, let's see what all the geniuses do when the interest rates came down. Let's just see how smart everybody is because Uber. I'll never forget the first time that I took an Uber. I want to say it was either after my freshman year or sophomore year in university. It must have been sophomore year because I think I was working with my dad, and one of my cousins was living in downtown Toronto at the time. So I come home and I'm allowed to drink now, so I need to go downtown and I want to see what's going on King Street and all that stuff. And night's over, my cousin looks at me and he says, "Hey, do you want to stay over at my place or do you want to go home? Like, what's the deal?" And I said, "Well, you know what? My dad and I have a meeting tomorrow morning. I need to go home." And he says, "It's okay. Well, let me call you an Uber." And I say, "A what?" He said, "An Uber. It's this new thing, different than a cab." Okay, cool. Get in the car. I go home. He messages me as soon as I get home. He says, "See, you got home. Make sure you get some rest." I say, "Oh, okay, thanks so much. That's really cool that you can see that I got home. How much was that, by the way?" He's like, $26. I say $26 to get from downtown to all the way to East Markham. And just for context, at that time, that's the same amount of time it would like take to get from East Markham to like the western edge of Markham in a cab. And I was blown away. Do you know what that the other day, the same ride from King Street to my home during surge pricing, I want to say was $134.
Yep.
The same ride. And so what did Uber do? It raised a bunch of VC capital at very low cost of capital, killed the cab industry. And once they killed the cab industry, what did they do? they increase the prices. Okay, so is that an example of technology improving my life? Or is that an example of actually
Very bad
using
analogy, if I'm honest.
finance, of using, and saying it's tech, of using finance, high level finance, to extract profits from regular individuals while killing a bunch of small entrepreneurs?
How is that any different from when the Industrial Revolution occurred? And, we used to have all these great stable jobs like raising horses, caring for carriages. And the automobile comes and, it puts a lot of
Because
the
they created
promotion.
factories to build those automobiles.
Right. And I think that is
Specifically,
also happening in the United States at the moment.
It's happening, or is
yeah, but
when
specifically the
Zuckerberg is
difference
cutting jobs
with
at Facebook because of AI, and we
Exactly.
can
Right.
yeah,
replace
but
all the software engineers? Is that how we're creating jobs?
It is, and I'll tell you why. Because I think there's a lot of people in this world who believe that if we ban or restrict the access to these tools, and if we pretend that technology isn't advancing, then we won't be affected by it. And I can tell you
specific.
that this is already
Sorry,
Go ahead.
happening. That as a founder, right? Like somebody who never learned how to code before. In the past, I would have had to. By the way, actually, I genuinely feel like we are at the start of another form of industrial revolution. Because I can tell you that if I want to start a business in the past, I would maybe need to hire a graphic designer. I might need to hire one or two different programmers. I would need a lot more capital. I would need a lot more knowledge and resources to even get started. And
I
today,
agree with I agree with
and
that.
today,
So how does that creating jobs though?
the idea is that if I can create a company, if I can have customers, I have revenue, I will hire people. And you're seeing all these talented Canadians. I'm personally seeing, I have a list of 50 to 60 young Canadians who are leaving the country, who are coming to the US. They're setting up the companies here. They're going to hire other Canadians from Waterloo, from UFT, from McMaster, all born in Canadian public funded hospitals, educated in the Canadian public school system, trained by Canadian taxpayer funded university funds, taking this talent into the US and then hiring them, having them pay taxes here in the US, and they're never going home.
Jerry,
Right? Like how
Jerry,
many Canadians have come down south
let
and
me
have
let me ask
gone,
you one question. Let me ask you one question.
shoot.
With all the people that you've met in finance, if you were building a company and you were with a real high level investor, would they look at labor as a benefit, like to your company? If you said, look, I really need a lot of human capital here, would they look at that and say that that's a strong company? Or would they look at
But
it and
that's
say, how can I actually cut that?
but that's the entire point. Today, quality labor is more valuable than ever. Trained, skilled, talented individuals. You don't even need to be over 18 to start a business. There are a lot of I've
Yeah, to
met.
start a business, but that's different than being like one. The idea of, look, I love entrepreneurship, right? Like I'm not somebody who I'm not especially wired to work a job. Maybe I'm just a surly individual. I don't know what to say, but at the same time, not everybody's me, right? Like there's different dispositions, and
Absolutely.
what I will say is that the world today is it's become a eat what you kill type world. Like when I look at social media, again, there's a split in this world, and I think that's where Gen Z is the kids? Gen Z is a lot better off than we were as elder millennials. Or no, sorry, no, we're not elder, we're young millennials. Is that they understand that they have to go out there and make it happen, right? Like you got to go, like you're right. You can create a business, you can go online, you can, with $0 today, go out and make something that's really cool, right? But that's not the way that the world was promised to a lot of individuals. When people were signing up in the States and in Canada at a lesser scale for, over 100 grand of student debt, that's not what they were signing up for. Was for, hey, I'm gonna go out there and start an e-commerce business, right? If
Well,
that's what you were supposed to do, why would you have gone to school in the first? Like, I
this
wouldn't
is exactly
advocate
what I'm
for it.
talking about now. I think, and maybe I sound crazy because the environments that I'm in is maybe a bit ludicrous. So first of all, I will say that like if you want to succeed in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, like you have to be a little crazy because the idea that you can create software and that one person can make a change that affects the lives of billions of people, this is something that happens every day, and
Yeah,
yet it's almost
but
unfathomable.
Jared,
This
that's
is
not what I'm saying. What
directly
I'm
happening.
saying is that there's a group of people like you can do that. Like I'm saying, like sure, you might wake up and do that. I might wake up and do that, but that's not like I don't expect everyone in a classroom to want to wake up and do it.
But Will,
That's
I'm
not what the
telling you,
world should be.
it doesn't
You know,
matter
like
to me what the world should be right now because I'm telling you what is currently happening. If you
that
go to the
everyone's
top
waking up saying
universities,
that they're going to start billion-dollar companies.
know that if you go to these classrooms, you go to the top students at the top universities, they can't get jobs because the people who are hiring no longer need them. And therefore, if you want to create economic security for yourself, if you want to feed your family, if you want to take care of your friends, then it's reliant on ourselves to create those
But
opportunities to
that,
happen.
I'm saying that in itself is problematic.
But how do you
Like
stop the world from doing that, right? Like, for example, Trump, one of the reasons why he's launching these trade wars is to bring manufacturing back to the US.
exactly.
Do you
So
think that's
that
going to
there's
happen?
a stable of yeah. If he honestly the tariff stuff, the problem with it is that it's being done in a time where the U like people are these economies are weak, right? This is what we're saying. The real economy is weak. This should have been done. Go back to Reagan or whatever. Like that's when they should have done it, because there would have been better ability to weather the storm, right? Because yeah, we shouldn't have exported jobs overseas. We shouldn't have, right?
But we can keep
And
looking at the past, and I'm talking about the future because when I
yeah,
look
no, but I'm
at
saying if
manufacturing,
you had enough runway, the tariff thing's a good idea because eventually, with a lot of pain, you would bring the manufacturing back.
and what
But
kind
it's
of jobs
painful.
can
It's
come with that
painful.
manufacturing? It's not people working in assembly lines, not people like I can tell
It's
you
not.
because we have no,
We're
because I
building
can
whole towns in Ontario around plants. Look at Honda and New Tecumseh, and
Honda's investing right next to Aurora, but they've already paused those plans because of the tariffs, right? And one of the problems that I see with a lot of the talk about manufacturing is that the nature of manufacturing has fundamentally shifted. It's not 10,000 people, working in one large warehouse anymore. It's if you go to China and you visit some of the factories there, and you look at what you know any factory around the world, not just in China or in Indonesia or India, wherever, it's automation, right? What you need for these factory jobs are not bodies to fill the seat. It's highly technical, specialized, computerized, digitalized technicians who understand how to build autonomous tools, which is
I
why
don't think it. I don't think it's
I can
that
take you to these.
advanced,
I,
sure.
I can
Yeah, I'm
take
not saying, but like I'm saying, there's a lot of labor still. I'm not
there's a lot
denying
of
that
labor,
there's
but it's
not.
not the kind of labor
It's
that
not a that.
existed
Yeah, but I
before.
don't think these factories are filled with you. Everybody's walking around with a master's degree. I don't think that
A very
go
sick.
look at a fact. Go look at what Tesla's doing in the states. We could
Yeah,
pull up a
wait, that
job posting. I don't think that's what it is.
wait, but that's a really good point because if you look at the output of Teslas in the States versus in China, right? That in Canada, when you buy a Tesla, you don't get the American one. You get depending on the model, you actually get the Chinese Shanghai Gigafactory product. And if you look at how these new car factories that Tesla is competing against, right? Because we know that a lot of domestic automakers in the US and in Europe are getting crushed overseas. You can try to create much more manually assisted jobs than what's being used in Asia. But at the end of the day, Volkswagen had its first
Yeah,
unprocessed
but
in over
that's what you're gonna do. Like if you do that and you put again, if
how
you
can
did
you
that,
build a
you put the
factory?
tariffs and you put the tariffs Because the question is, what is good for your country? Like, that's what we never thought about. We thought about what was great. Like when we talked about this in university and economics, oh, specialization and driving the cost down. What if driving the cost down is not what's best for your country?
But your
Like, why
country,
didn't we think about that? Why didn't we think
I
about that?
agree. I think the best thing to do for the country is to offer the most competitive products out there, right?
No,
Like we're on
no,
sales.
no, 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 no. I actually don't. This is where the math has actually. This is what I mean about financialization and and uh, and metrics and all these sorts of things have actually lost the plot. And the example I'll give is actually in basketball. And I don't know if I've given it before on this podcast, but I was a huge fan of the NBA growing up. Again, I went to high school 2007 to 2011, right? And the NBA was great, awesome. Now the NBA has become all about 3-point shooting, and it's basically a solved game, right? So when you look at it, you say like, what's best for the game? Yes, it is best to shoot threes, go to the rim, take layups, and get fouls. That's what's best for the game by the math. But what's best for the viewer is actually not that, because the game is more boring than it's ever been. It's like I do not care at all about what's happening in basketball. So that's what I'm saying. It's like efficiency. That's exactly what happened when you looked at things and you said like, specialization of nations and these sorts of things. We looked at it. We said like, this is what's most efficient. This is what's best. But what was best for the society? We didn't think about that. And that's how we end up in the situation that we're in. Efficiency is not always should not always be the goal. It's about humans. And that's what we keep forgetting, in my opinion. Thanks, Ash. Thanks for agreeing with me. And we lost, it says Jerry will be back soon. So I don't know if you heard, I don't even know if you heard that wonderful monologue. But
Well, what I wanted to say is the NBA is actually fantastic, right? So now that the product is getting boring, the NBA is thinking about changing some rules, right, to try to spice it up and try to force people to do things that are less optimal. And that's sort of what tariffs do, right? It's like, hey, let's throw in some rule changes that help incentivize different types of behavior. The difference is that the NBA is a bit of a vacuum, right? There's only really one basketball product out there. Global trade is a different issue. So if you have two businesses, one person who is using a significant amount of technology to produce high quality items at a lower cost, and then another one which is adhering to the old rules, saying, you know what, this is the way it was meant to be played, and this is the way that it was meant to be done. And
I think that's a false equivalency, because there might be only one basketball league, but there's other entertainment products out there. I can choose to watch football instead. I can choose to watch Netflix.
right,
I can choose to watch TikTok.
for sure.
Right?
But the difference is that these are not as direct substitutes as products are.
It's a direct sub. Why do you think the NFL is competing on every day the NBA is trying to compete on? They are a direct substitute. And if there's one thing that the NFL understands they understand that it's an entertainment product. Like, it's not like you need to align the efficiency with what is best for, in that instance, a society, which is the entertaining audience. And that's what the NFL gets. The NBA doesn't understand that. So everyone's obsessed with efficiency and all that stuff, and they'll kill the game.
I think
so why break it if you don't have to?
Sure, but I think the NBA and NFL as competing products are a lot less comparative against, let's say, like a Canadian-made Tesla versus a Chinese EV, right? And we're seeing that happen play out real time, not just in North America, but in Japan. I don't know if you know, I've heard about this, but Nissan is about to cut, I think, 40,000 jobs because they're about to go bankrupt. They're trying to get acquired by Mitsubishi. They're trying to get acquired by Tesla. The entire company of Nissan might go bankrupt very soon, right? And these products are direct one-for-one substitutes. So when someone, very few people decide, you know what, I'm going to watch the NFL over the NBA or vice versa, partially because these
You
are
think
almost,
very few? I think there's a ton of people that do that,
I think it, I think,
including me as a former big basketball fan.
I think, yeah, I think it's a lot less common than someone deciding to buy a Tesla over a Nissan, as an example,
Really?
right?
I think that I disagree.
They're,
I
they're,
think they are direct. I think they're direct competitors, right? I don't think basketball competes with basketball. You're right. There's only one basketball league. Sports compete with sports. And not only that, sports competes with other TV shows. That's
yeah.
what the NFL understands. It's entertainment.
I would say
And
it's not a relevant equivalency compared to, like, for example, car manufacturing in Canada versus car manufacturing in Japan and
why not? I don't see what if both things air on TV Monday night at 8 o'clock, why are they not
well,
competitors?
for one, the leagues stagger a lot of their schedules, right? Like, you don't really get competitive programming between the two. They
Oh yeah, sure you do. With the NBA and NFL, they do. They do. They
but
overlap.
very few people watch all the teams. They have specific teams that they follow, and you can see that.
Not in the NFL. In the NFL, we watch. Everybody watches because they're the
No,
best
no, no.
sports league.
Okay.
That's the difference. The
I think
NFL,
okay.
everybody watches everybody. In the NBA and baseball, like the worse the sports league is, they follow less. The NFL understands it's entertainment, and
Sure.
they create strong storylines that make the whole league interesting. That's why on live television, the NFL is the dominant product on live television. Scripted dramas, reality TV, everything included. The NFL is king because they understand what they are, which is pure entertainment,
I think
right?
if we're using this analogy to describe, like, global macroeconomic trade and economic conditions, like, let's not forget that before these tariffs, right, the incumbent government was very, very close to having essentially a revolt, and hence why Trudeau decided to step down. And I think if you
No,
look
I think that was exaggerated. To be honest, I told you he had a path. If Trudeau right now, that press conference that he did the other day, if he didn't back off, you're telling me right now Trudeau wouldn't be. I mean, the Liberals have made a huge comeback,
yeah,
and
but
everybody,
because of
even
this,
people that hate, even people that hate Trudeau, are saying that he did a good job. He's doing a good job on this tariff stuff. If
thanks to
Trudeau
Trump.
just weathered the storm, yeah, thanks to that's what politics is. It's entertainment. It's storylines. That's why I kept saying if he stuck around, I always thought he was going to rebound. It
Sure.
just he caved to the pressure, and if he had just waited it out a little bit longer, all this
He was
grandstanding that
about
he's doing on TV,
he was about to get voted out by his own MPs on the Liberal Party, right? You had multiple.
yeah, because
That's a sorry, I didn't really want to focus too much on that. What I wanted to go back to was Canadian competitiveness, and I think there are definitely plenty of people who believe that Canada shouldn't necessarily compete on certain things that seem hard to compete on, whether it's with Silicon Valley or with Chinese manufacturing or any other topic. At the end of the day, here's what's happening, right? The brain drain problem is real. We know that, and that it's happening much and much more frequently. The people in Canada who have the skill set to create jobs, to build businesses that make money, and then have to hire other people to help them grow their business, they're all leaving. One of our biggest no, it's not one of the biggest. Our biggest domestic company, Shopify, is actively looking to reincorporate in the US and take even more jobs. And so part of what I've been doing as to mentor these university students who are studying computer science at Waterloo, at Queen's, UFT, no, Ash, I'm going to have to disagree with you because I'm telling you, like, all these super high paying jobs, which people would then earn, they would put in their bank accounts and they would put into the economy and buy things, right? They're all coming here. And for me, that's the saddest thing that I've seen is that everybody who wants to make something with their life feel like this is not Canada's not the place to be. And if Shopify moves, if Cohere moves, if Canadian technology moves, like right now, if the US actually tried to invade Canada, we can't even fight back because half of our equipment is American produced with American software and electronics that they can turn off at any moment, like we're seeing what's happening in Ukraine, right? Like we don't have that capacity to build out any form of defense because our software is all controlled by the Americans. Software is literally the heart and brain of how machines work, right? That's how they're operated. So I know it's a very uphill battle to fight, but it's definitely something that I'm willing to die on this hill because
Well, I think it's a good conversation. I like the spicy end to this, and we'll probably call it the end of this episode. But I like the spiciness of it. I think that's the thing. What we want to do is encourage conversation, right? And yeah, thanks, Ash. Thanks for running through with us. And look, we'll post some stuff, and what we want to do is encourage conversation. And because I think that the best idea will win, but it can only win if the ideas are out there. So I appreciate everybody for joining us, Jerry. I appreciate your viewpoint. I think I'm going to come back and maybe do a little research for the next episode, so I'm a little bit better armed with some stats as well. And but I think this is important what we're doing here, and it's exciting. It's exciting for sure. So yeah, any last words, Jerry, before we log off here?
No, thank you for having me on. Thank you everybody for listening. I want to provide some. I think, I think it's just healthy to have different opinions, to have different perspectives, and to try to really coax out the best, right? Because I don't think there's one solution that will fix everything. There's better ones, there's worse ones, and I think the best ideas will come out of debate and competition. Just like any competition, the best skier will come out of the best skiing competitions. So yeah.
No, exactly. So, all right. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time. And we certainly did it live this time. So stay tuned for the next episode. All right.
Bye-bye.
Later.